PXG has done it again with the launch of a new lineup of drivers, fairways, hybrids, and irons. The new Gen 5 golf clubs deliver significantly increased MOI, faster ball speeds, longer distances, and tighter dispersions, all coupled with the exceptional feel and sound golfers have come to expect from PXG. Schedule your custom fitting or buy online at pxg.com.
And we're back. Stripe Show podcast on a Tuesday. I'm your host, Travis Fulton. Thank you for making us part of your day. We're hustling up here in Florida, getting ready for a hurricane coming our way. Cat 3, probably going to hit Tampa on Wednesday and then kind of work its way up towards us. Probably be a tropical storm or a Hurricane 1 by then. But we got a show today, potentially tomorrow. And then we'll kind of see where we're at into Thursday. But the PGA Tour is rolling on, and they're over in Jackson, Mississippi, which I think will be fine. This hurricane's going to miss them as it kind of veers up the state of Florida. And it's going to be Sandersons Farms. We'll get to that here in a minute, but want to bring back one of our favorite guests, Geoff Fienberg, up in Canada. Big old smile on his face as his Toronto Blue Jays are going to be making the playoffs. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing well, Travis. I don't know. You know me, though. It's the Blue Jays are sort of saving my soul because, like a lot of football fans, my team is already broken, which means I got to dive right into Sandersons Farms, but can't continue without acknowledging how beautiful your studio looks there, buddy. I see the updates on Twitter regularly, and every time I tune into the Stripe Show, I see a nice other little upgrade that sort of found its way in there. So congrats to you, man. It's looking awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's pretty well complete now. And thanks to my sponsors, right? I mean, About Golf Simulator, who's the presenting sponsor of this podcast, loving that thing. Doing a lot of fun stuff there. PXG, of course, Glenn Fittich, as you see here, and Haymaker Coffee. So it's not possible, without them and the audience, the growth of the podcast. So it's been fun putting this together. I can tell you I'm done spending money. And now it's about, growing the podcast, running the day-to-day business of this studio. But it's fun, Geoff, because, I'm a teacher by trade, and I've been doing it for 22 years. But I like doing all other things golf. I like talking to you guys about the gambling side, the handicap perspective. I like talking to tour players. I like hosting events. So it's like I like to do a lot of different things. So this studio kind of makes me use my brain more, if that makes sense.
There it is. Yeah.
President's Cup, buddy. The Americans, I think about what I expected, win by 5. I was thinking 5, 6, somewhere in there. I was impressed with the international team. I've known Trevor Immelman for a while, and a lot of people were sending me notes like, man, Trevor's so impressive. What a leader. And it's like, man, I had no doubt Trevor Immelman was going to go in there and be a terrific captain. I wish they would give it to him again, but I think Mike Weir is going to be the captain when it goes to Montreal in a couple years. And you guys are going to host a great President's Cup up there, and it's going to be fantastic. But, look, the President's Cup kind of takes the back seat to the Ryder Cup. We know that. We knew it was going to be a little lopsided. It was early. But at the end of the day, I found myself, Geoff, watching it. I sent some tweets out. I was like, man, this is a bit cleansing. It's so much about golf, competition, the spirit, team, country. Money was never mentioned. It was cleansing to me. How'd it land for you?
Yeah, it was just such an incredible event, and it exceeded my expectations. And you have all the respect in the world for Trevor Immelman for what he, the time and energy and the soul that him and it seems like his whole family put into this in such a tough spot. Like Liv really did take this thing down. This was always the stepchild of team golf to Ryder Cup. It can never compete. It doesn't have the history. We're self-aware enough to acknowledge this was a made for TV event somewhere in the 90s. And it felt like we were at an absolute low point last week with no ability to build off that great momentum from 19 in Australia.
Yep.
And I, like a lot of other people, fear-mongered what the conversation was going to be like today, Travis, were sponsors going to be happy? Was Montreal going to feel like, oh no, we've got to put on this show? But I got to tell you, we sit here on the Monday after, and I think the sponsors are excited. I know Montreal's going to put on a party. It's great to see. Like, I don't know what the example is, but it's fun sometimes when you see Georgia or Alabama play that Boise State and watch them fight. And it's a different element, and full credit to the international team and credit to the Americans. I don't want to say like credit to them, like they partied hard. That shows they cared. But they cared, and the people of Charlotte cared, and the crowds were great, and they put on a great event, and the players care. Even if it is in some way for them a president, like this sort of breeding ground or leading event for them into the Ryder Cup, they put their best foot forward. It was fantastic. I said a lot. I am so excited for my Travis.
You should be.
I'm going to be there. I know Pat Mayo's going to be there. We might not even make it to the golf course, because if you've ever been to Montreal, it is a banger of a party town, and we're going to throw it down. But I cannot wait. And you're right. Weir's probably going to get that C, and he beat Tiger Woods in singles at Royal Montreal, which is a point of pride. Didn't have many points of pride for the Canadians on the golf course last week, but it's just a totally different feel than a week ago today about how I'd be feeling about the future of this event. So a total win.
Hey, it matters to the leaders of the team, and it's going to matter to the other players, right? You know, the American side, Tiger, Phil, I don't think it really mattered to them. They may say it did, but I don't think it did. And it kind of trickled down, right? And the Americans struggled in the Ryder Cup. They were able to obviously win the President's Cup, but I don't think it really mattered to him. And we see this new group now coming in at the Ryder Cup last year. It matters to them, and I think it mattered to them this week with the President's Cup. And I think on the international side, look, Liv has hurt him. There's no question. But those guys played hard. Tom Kim, rising star. I think Munoz will take the next step, beating the number one player in the world in Scheffler on Sunday. Very much like Scheffler beat the number one player with Rahm at the Ryder Cup, took the next step. So I think there was a lot of wins there. I think the international team is poised to perhaps maybe even put a better team together than the European team in the next 4 years. I'd go that far to make.
The score was closer. I mean, someone pointed that out, that the Ryder Cup was far more lopsided than it was the President's Cup. And we will see, like a lot of golf fans, we've always kind of been expecting and I guess we were almost there with what the team could have been.
It could have been. There's no question. Cam Smith. I mean, I would say that's a 2-point swing right there. Cam Smith.
He had the ability to pull a John Rahm and go like 4-0-1 and completely change the face of this. And
Neiman
and Louis and Answer. Those are four of their top 7 players, including probably 3 of their best current. You would have made the case that Neiman would have been the second best player on the team. I
said that, yeah.
You could have debated that, him or him, going into last week. You probably would have said, in terms of current form status, forgetting green jackets and leadership with Decky and Scott, Neiman probably slots in as the second best player. So,
and you knew Louis would compete, and he would grind. And so, yeah, it's just, it's too bad, right? Because it could have been closer. There's no question about it. But yeah, I just, I can't help but think also that those guys are sitting there, and I know they got paid fat, and they're gonna, they're happy with where they are. But I guarantee deep down there was a little competitive spirit burning. I should be there. There's no question.
Couldn't convince me otherwise.
Yeah. I should be there.
Honestly, I would assume a guy like Abe Answer, who he's one of the few guys who's gone to live and say he's actually going to mess the competition. Like, he acknowledged that in some of his opening remarks, but they got paid a price. I have zero doubts, Travis, that he might have even chose not to watch it, because it would have, not hurtful is the wrong word, but would have felt some serious FOMO that they probably tried to not even turn it on.
Yeah. I agree. Well, as we move forward now, PGA Tour season it's underway. We are in our second event, season-long race to the FedEx Cup, Sandersons Farm Championship. This is going to be the last look of the fall season as we know it. And there's going to be some changes, I think, starting next year. But here we are, Sandersons Farms Championship, Country Club of Jackson. I feel like it's been a while since I've done this show. I've been traveling and a couple other guys picking it up for me. So it's good to kind of get the breakdown here and some bets of who we like into this week's event. It's not a great field. We know that. Sam Burns is there, number 12 ranked player. He's the defending champion. Country Club of Jackson, I've never played this one. 72 to 7,400 yards, somewhere in there. Bermuda, of course, here in the south. Par 72. I do know one thing, and those that have played it, my good friend Fred Funk has played this many times. In fact, he's won this tournament a couple times back in the early days. It was called something else. I'll think of it. But anyway, these greens are quick. These are fast Bermuda greens, kind of like they get them at Quail Hollow. And you look at Burns last year, Geoff, and the kind of player that's going to win this event. Burns, historically is a good putter, but he didn't putt good here. Last year, he was -2 strokes gained putting, but he just smoked it tee to green, plus 14.8. Sergio back in 2020, he was plus 12 tee to green, no surprise, plus 2.8 putting. And then Sebastian Munoz, who I think will get a lot of play this week, he won in 19. He was plus 6.9 tee to green, plus 6.2. Cameron Champ has won this. Cody Gribble has won this, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, this is the who's who. I don't know. I look at this golf course. I look at the past. I need tee to green. And I think I'll roll the dice a little bit on the putter this week. Anytime I see a name like Sergio winning here, it kind of opens up the gamut for me. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you see even like Sergio, Cam Champ, Munoz, like Munoz and Champ just seem like guys, they either get like really hot. They can get hot. They're not really known for great putters, but it shows an ability, I guess, for not great putters, but guys that can hit it a ton to have great weeks here. My memories of this place, just a real open golf course where the drivers can just bomb it out.
Yep.
And the Bermuda greens, you need guys that make the birdies. You've got to trust a guy can go low. You have to see a guy clearing 20 under to be thinking he can lift the trophy or even contend this week. So that is sort of where my head is at. And you mentioned Burns at the top. He's a defending champ. He's the type of guy, I'm certainly not looking to invest anything in him, Travis, but he's the type of guy, despite having not an ideal President's Cup record last week, even though he played way better than his record. I think if you watch, Scotty Scheffler kind of held him back a bit in the early days. He's just a natural born winner. I think he just shows up anywhere, be it if he showed up at your Pro-Am at your Muni or a PGA Tour event. He just wants to I don't know. He could go to anywhere and win. Yep. So I am kind of scared of him at the top, probably motivated or angry at himself. He strikes me as a guy that's not even able to enjoy the Team USA win as much because he feels like he didn't contribute like he should have. So I feel like he's wearing that, and that could be a big problem for the whole field. But I in an event like this, I cannot pull a trigger there.
Well, what is he at? Right now, as we come on a Tuesday, he's 11-1. And I love Burns. I'm a homer and have been for a couple years. And I certainly not going to pull the trigger on this. He did play better than his record. I thought Mito Pereira played better than his record. You're always going to have that in match play. You can't always just look at the record and say, oh, wow, he smoked it. I mean, especially in team competition, because Burns was carrying Scheffler. There's no question about it. So, look, Bermuda Burns, he's a Southern kid. He's from Louisiana. He went to LSU. I mean, he knows how to play this kind of grass. And he'll be tough. There's no question. JT Poston, as we start to get into the odds, is 16. North Carolina kid. McCarthy has played well here. He's 18. Sahith Thagala will get some play at 20. Henley, 22. If you're looking for the tee to green game. Bezuidenhout coming off his President's Cup experience at 28. And then I'll stop at Montgomery. and Stallings at 30. Those are a couple interesting names for me. Montgomery, you mentioned the distance off the tee. The kid can smoke it. The only thing that kind of holds me back a little bit from Taylor is he never did win on the web.com, and he was barking top tens, it seems like, every week, but he never got the win. So I'll probably pass, but I do think Taylor Montgomery is a player in a top 20 that is probably of interest to me as we start looking at the top of the board.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the books are not giving us anything on Montgomery. They know how dangerous he can be.
Yep.
Despite not winning, as you mentioned last year on Corn Ferry, it felt like he was contending every single week. And that trajectory, most of us paying attention are certain it's not going to stop, despite the competition being higher. I am one of the people, and it feels like it could be popular, Travis. I'm biting the bullet on the 20-1 on Sahith.
Okay.
It does feel like I'm trying to be cocky and like call the win, which I don't really like doing. But he led the tour in birdies last year. He's an absolute birdie machine. Got himself into some trouble on some easier holes at the Fortinet, which kind of put him out of a chance to make a push, although it, Willett and Homa did really pull away from everybody there. I just see his game being able to take total advantage of this place. And I do realize I am trying to be cocky. And in some ways, if you're betting Montgomery at that number, you're trying to be cocky too.
Yes, sir.
Trying to call that first
just top 20 though. I'm not saying his first win, top 20.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, for that outright price for a guy who didn't even win on the I love Corn Ferry. I can make a debate. It's the second, well, now that Liv's here, but you can make a debate. Winning on Corn Ferry is harder than winning on the DP sometimes. I mean, just in terms of field strength. I'm not looking to have an argument or a debate, but it's the real deal.
Yes.
But yeah, so Sahith
for me, wouldn't get an argument from me. I agree.
Yeah. So the Sahith for me would be my favorite of the guys near the top of the board. It is that all around just birdie explosion ability that would have me.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the birdies right now, just as a little sample size. Top 50 or last 50 rounds in FantasyNational.com. Burns is 1, Griot's 2, Svensson 3, Davis Riley, who I kind of like this week, 4, Henley 5, Ben Griffin coming up. I like Thomas Dietrich. These are some of the names that are just kind of, popping up here off the birdies. And you go down to number 10, and it's Scott Stallings, who I do like this week as well. When you want to talk about someone who can absolutely hit lasers with his irons. And Stallings is playing some good golf. I mean, he's really has had a nice season. I'm with you on Thagala. If I played anybody up top there, I think it would be Sahith as well. But I'll probably bite the bullet with a Stallings who knows how to win. Bradley at 35. Could this be the week Davis Riley gets it done? We've seen him up there. One of my favorite golf swings on the PGA Tour. He's 35-1. Griot's 40-1. And I think Molineux will get some play too. You agree with that at 40? And I'll go to Dietrich at 40 as well.
Molineux I'm seeing is very popular. Yeah. He's definitely getting play. And apparently, I missed the boat. There were some huge numbers on Molineux out of the gate on Monday that some people were able to take full advantage of his ability to just mash it. Should play. He's popular. You've mentioned a couple guys there who I am going to invest in. One being Davis Riley. To a certain extent, maybe I am being cocky and trying to call that one for a guy who hasn't won. But there are 40s out there on Riley, and I think that is such a fair number in this field, Travis, for a guy that had truly a brilliant season without winning, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Ranked top 20 in birdie average, which should see him do well here. Second at the Valspar, 4th at Charles Schwab. He's just a great all-around game. It's a home game for him. He's called it his 5th major. He's a Mississippi guy. He hasn't fared well in his first 2 runs here, but I'm sort of hoping that experience and playing in front of friends and family, like you're kind of hoping that maybe in those first 2 runs, he's maybe more comfortable in that spot. It'll be really concerning for me if he doesn't play well this week. because I feel like he's going to be a guy I'm going to chase at Sanderson until he's too good that he doesn't even want to play the event anymore. So I am in on Riley, and I have also bet Thomas Detry.
So did I. Yep.
Who I'm not really seeing show up in many people's conversations this week.
I like Detry a lot here.
But has 5 top 15s in his last 8 events, and this is spanning DP, Corn Ferry, PGA Tour.
Yep.
He got his card. He's a late bloomer, almost, and I've had so many Detry close calls on DP and I guess Corn Ferry, and he has struggled to break through for me. But I think the form, his ability, the just ball striking, the bombing ability, I think he'll be totally comfortable on this sort of track. So I'm definitely looking at Detry.
Glenfiddich, the world's most awarded single malt Scotch whiskey, is expertly crafted and made with extraordinary care. Each single malt is a work of perfection.
Yeah, the big Belgium. He's 117th official world golf ranking. And people forget, I mean, he's from Belgium. He's 29. He went to Illinois. I like him here. I think he's got some, I think that length off the tee here could bode well for him. I have played Ditchy. We were thinking the same way there as well. And, look, I think Molinex is popular. Alabama kid in the South. Riley, I like the ceiling of Riley. I've seen it. I've seen that impressive ball striking. He's definitely cooled off some. And he's not quite the same version of himself that we saw in May and in June when he was rattling off top 10s. But like you said, this tournament means something to him. So I think he's the one that I've got circled with the biggest asterisk around him. I probably will end up going to him. But at this point, the bet of Thomas Detry at 40-1 is one that I have made. Seamus Power, 40. Again, not the same version of what we've seen from him earlier in the year. Putnam, 45. Wyndham Clark, there's that high ceiling that I tend to get suckered into once in a while, 45. Taylor Moore, Christian Kirk, Harris English back in the field. I think I'll stop there for a second. Harris works with Justin Parsons up in Sea Island. Justin's a good friend of mine. And I'm seeing I kind of follow these teachers, right? And I look at who they're posting and I communicate with them. And sometimes I start to see this extra effort of posting a certain player, right? And I'm seeing a lot of Harris English being published. So in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, Justin's got to be pretty excited here. Harris, he's got to be feeling pretty good again. We know what Harris can do. We've seen it. He went into a slump, injuries, this and that. But is Harris feeling good again and could catch people by the storm at 50-1? We know he knows how to win. We know he knows how to play in the South. Georgia kid. I'm really interested on the health and the motivation of Harris English as we kind of turn into a new season.
Yeah, he's certainly a very intriguing play this week. I've seen a lot of people I respect certainly pick him, and you have to assume a guy who played on last year's Ryder Cup team in the season he had, if he watched any golf this past week, that had to just light a fire in that sort of guy who, I don't want to say, I mean, his 2022 feels like it was strictly injury riddled, and I don't know that you could take much from it, but he shot 9 under across the final 54 holes at the Fortinet, which was T3, but it was for a T9 finish. So right there, Travis, I'm seeing people on Harris this week, and they're just sort of saying, listen, this is a number that's 50-1.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen enough life. The guy finished 9th at Fortinet. I'm playing the ceiling of Harris English and thinking he's healthy. You saying that his coaches are excited and, sort of getting ahead of what they feel is good play in the fall on the horizon as a, in the teaching world, that's sort of a sign where coaches are excited about what's going to happen. I would say, if you just told me I saw Harris English finished T10 in his last event. This is a bad field. There's enough for me to just want to play a guy like Harris English. I couldn't argue that one bit. One more thing, even before we continue, I do want your thoughts on Keegan and even Griot, who showed up on that list. Like, is there who would you trust more? But Travis, are we finally, before we go over 50 and into deeper, I think it got brought to my attention, something we speak about often, sort of as the season concluded last year. We didn't have a winner north of 60-1 since Billy Horschel at the Memorial. That is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd argue this field sets up for us to go right back into a long shot. And you would have thought Fortinet too. And we had Willett, who was 100 versus the favorite in Max Homa. Essentially, in the end, it went to Homa. So I don't know. I just like betting on the good players, to be perfectly honest. And Harris English would certainly classify as someone who, in this field, we would quantify as a good player.
Yep. No, I'm with you. That was the first person that I circled, and there's a few things working for me there with Harris at 50. It feels like a no-brainer in the direction that I think he's on the up again in this kind of field. Harris English hitting on all cylinders is one of the best players. As far as your question, Griot or Bradley, I would probably go Griot. I think Griot's playing better. He's certainly the more reliable guy as far as with the putter. Griot's been on a little bit of a heater too, as far as the summer and the end with the putter. As I'm looking at his stats right now, we know Griot can get it done off the tee. And look, the putter, he seems to be playing with a lot of confidence. You'd like to see a little more in the approach game right now, but I think between the two, I have more confidence in Griot right now.
Yeah, I would take the bigger price with Griot, but I'm seeing Keegan very popular. Griot, not so much, but again, you mentioned Munoz, Champ, Garcia. It's been a place where guys who we historically at times can mock their putting have been able to find it match up for them here. So he's a guy I'm looking at, but I don't know, hitting submit on Griot, it's hard to do. I bet other guys who don't win golf tournaments, Travis.
I'm not playing Griot. Yeah. And I'm not playing.
No, I put the question out. I put that in front of you.
Yeah, I think, okay, so let's go into the 60s. Maybe this is the week.
There is a guy, though, that I think we didn't mention who I do like. I do want to
Putnam?
touch on. No, well, Putnam I do want to touch on because if you're betting
I thought you were going there.
If you're betting Putnam, shop the market, because I've seen it as high as 80 and as low as 45. It's one of the bigger discrepancies, maybe the biggest discrepancy of a player I've seen this week. Putnam does love a birdie fest, and I do probably anticipate, whether it be DraftKings or some other markets, getting in on Putnam. The guy I want to ask you about, I'm seeing a 50-1, and it's Sepp Straka.
Yeah.
5 straight missed cuts here, Travis. But why is he coming if he doesn't like the place? On top of that,
he's bored.
He must like it. There must be something about this course he thinks could work. But how did Sepp finish the season? He was on fire. Yeah. He came out of absolutely nowhere and went bananas. So he's the second highest world ranked player in the field. And I know we can mock world ranking. It deserves to be mocked, but it is still a metric, and you probably wouldn't believe to know that Sepp Straka has the second highest world ranking in this field. But in his last 3 outings, a second at the St. Jude, a 28th at the BMW, and for 72-hole stroke play, he was 6th at the Tour Championship. We're on a Bermuda course where he was 3rd at Harbour Town, 1 at PGA National. This could come with a miscut, and that's part of betting outright. Miscuts are the same as 5th place to me. I'm not betting each way either or placing on this. So I feel like I'm real tempted to play the Sepp Straka. You almost worry that it's been a couple weeks since the Tour Championship. I hope he didn't lose the form, but it's a course, the Bermuda grass, where he's had his most success with those recent results, That's one that keeps coming back to me. And I'm really surprised I haven't seen his name show up in a lot of other pieces that I've sort of taken in early in the week so far.
Yeah, it's almost like in August there, he had the run and miss cuts, right? Of course, he won the Honda and played nice really through April. And then he just kind of, it seemed like he lost the swing for sure. It wasn't so much the putter with him. He's a very nice putter, Sepp is. I actually spent a little time with him up at Hilton Head and walked with him and his coach Tillery for 3 holes, and just he's a great dude. Georgia kid, Georgia guy. He's a great guy. He really is. And kind of plays this big guy, wide, plays this
brick shithouse sort of.
Yeah, plays this like little float draw into there. And I think he kind of lost his swing in the summer. And then at the St. Jude in August, he got it back. And he's been riding that a little bit confidence wise. So yeah, I think he probably feels good about the swing. And I think when Sepp feels good about the swing, I think everything goes from there. So I think he's kind of out of that slump, which we see from time to time with players. Question is, to your point, is did that these 2 weeks off hurt him? Because he did not play in the Fortinet Championship. So it's been a month, almost a month since we've seen him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm probably not. I mean, look, if I'm there with Harris at 50, I think Harris is the better player as far as ceiling. I mean, why wouldn't I be there with Straka, right? I mean, he's like, to your point, you make very good points. He's the second highest rated player in this field. So,
which is a flawed, statement, but when you want to back a guy, I'll use it to defend my case in a weak field.
Well, I'm certainly going to take Straka over Dean Burmester at 50, or Adam Hadwin, another Georgia kid. I'm going to take him over Woodland and Smalley at 60. Justin Suh's getting a lot of respect at 65, and we know he's got a ceiling. I worry a little bit about Justin's length off the tee as he starts getting into these PGA Tour courses. I do like him though. I mean, he's a talented player. There's no question. Brendan. You start looking at these other names. I mean, Straka feels like the guy, if I'm going to play in the 50, 60 range, I think the guy that scares the shit out of me as we get to 80s, Luke List. I mean, if that putter wakes up, tee to green, show me a better player than Luke List.
No, I like that. And you on it actually, in sort of comparing Straka, you mentioned a few other guys who I like, or I could say have my attention this week. So what are your thoughts on Woodland? A veteran who, I don't know, I think he's healthy again, and a healthy Gary Woodland should fare pretty well at a course like this, Travis. And the Bermuda grass always seems to be a place where he's enjoyed.
Here's my thing with Woodland, and it always has been, and this is where I'm probably a little too close to the situation. I think Woodland's a tinker with his game.
Yeah.
And I feel like Woodland is always tinkering this and that and this and that. But and it's like, just go, dude, like you won the US Open, it can't be that far off. Right. I mean, I don't know. It just always feels like to me, and I think his ball striking shows it, like his approach game as of late. I mean, he hit it better at Fortinet. His short game and putting was terrible. I don't know. I just feel like he's always tinkering. And right now, in my opinion, is just kind of out there, like he's not the same Gary Woodland that was winning a major championship. He's far removed from that. So I kind of push back on Woodland. I'm certainly not playing him to win. And I doubt I'm even going to play him in the top 20.
Another guy you mentioned there who I have bet at an 80-1, I know those have come down a bit, is Alex Smalley.
Who I like.
He's another easy, solid all-around game with a few real serious eye-catching performances. I could see myself investing quite a bit in him in the swing season, to be perfectly honest, as long as he keeps teeing it up. The birdie rates for a guy like him, I don't mind as well.
Yeah, I like Smalley. He's one of my guys that I'll kind of default to at times, as I want to go with a young guy, a little unproven. Maybe this is the week, kind of thing. I've hit some top 20s, certainly on him. I think it was at the Wyndham, and there was a couple others. And, he's got to feel like this is a pretty good opportunity for him, right, this week. Like, there's a chance to win this week. So I think with Smalley, you said you got him at 80. Yeah, I mean, I my eyes as I look through these 60s and 70s and 80s, I kind of just get trapped with Luke List's ability to strike a golf ball. And I know the putter can be a wreck. But then all of a sudden, look, if the way he hits it, if he goes +2, +1, that's good enough to win. At a place like this, we've seen it. Sam Burns lost putting. So I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I'm trapped always with Luke List's ability to hit a golf ball. Hubbard at 80, Russell, Knox. I don't know if you saw, Russell was my first in-studio guest last week and got to spend some time with them. It was a really good conversation. And Russell, with Russell, it's always with the putter too, right? He can get there. The putter is what, like so many of these guys, is what either holds him back or propels him forward. And I think you might see a little modified broomstick this week from Russell. He was showing me this little mini broomstick style, and he loves it. Like he goes, for him, it's like hitting the line consistently. He's like, it's unbelievable. And sometimes, Geoff, when you make that change for the first time, you know how it is. Like all of a sudden you just start making everything. And then like it wears itself out, right? So the placebo effect, it's real. And I don't know. I'm not going to play him. I'm just trying to make a case for my friend Russell Knox.
I enjoyed
that's the
I enjoyed your conversation with Russell. I believe you posted that last week. He's very insightful. I enjoyed hearing him mention that, how much he's thought about all the permutations of live and a lot of things that people have said. I enjoyed that interview.
Well, it's interesting. Thank you. It's interesting that mid-tier player, right? Like Russell, as we just kind of get sidetracked here for a second on the schedule, but Russell is that mid-tier player, sits on the PAC committee, and he's got to look at it for himself, right? And then also from a PGA Tour standpoint. And it was just interesting to hear how all of this has transpired and his thoughts on the schedule and the fall schedule for a player like Russell Knox, for a player like Luke List, for a player like Gary Woodland, for a player like Sahith, the guy like this. These are important tournaments for them, right? To get points and money, because a lot of the big names are not going to be there. But is the fall series the right direction in the end for the PGA Tour, or is it getting too watered down? I feel, and I told him it's too watered down. I feel like it's too watered down. But for him, he feels like these are important. So it's an interesting debate. And at the end of the day, Jay Monahan, he's got a tough job ahead of him to make all of this whole for all of these members. And it's a big, Robbie Shelton out there at 80, Kevin Streelman. Stop me if there's a name that you like. Patrick Rogers, 80, Nick Taylor, Justin Lauer. I think it's an interesting name, playing good golf at 80.
Really good golf.
Yeah, I think that's a top 20 for me. And Ben On's played well here. Back out there. He's played well here. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he finished third, didn't he? I think Ben On finished third at Sanderson.
Playing well. It's good to see. It's just not a bet. I'm sort of like, this range is kind of dead to me. There are some bombs that I am potentially staring at, but I got nothing in this sort of like in front of 100.
Take me to a bomb.
Hayden Buckley.
Okay.
You sort of mentioned he fourth in the event last year, gaining 5.8 strokes tee to green. He ranks fourth in strokes gained off the tee. And that's something that seems to be a huge barometer of success here when looking at that Champ, Munoz, Burns recent winners. Sort of the 130 to 1. And then to go super bomb, which kind of seems crazy. as I mentioned earlier, no one's won anything north of 60 on tour.
Right.
For all the love of our Sues and Ty Montgomerys, Vincent Norman, Travis, at 200 to 1, finished 36 at the Fortinet. He gained 4.5 strokes off the tee there. So yeah, like, how do you put this? There are certain guys that might not be 5 times or 6, 7 times less likely to win than your Taylor Montgomerys, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And Montgomery is being squeezed bigly in that 30 to 1 range. You mentioned Justin Sue, who I don't mind, and wouldn't shock me at all in that 60 to 1 range. But there are a lot of people who pay real close attention to the Korn Ferry. I think some of these guys that you're getting in the hundreds have many of the same, well, I'd say different skill sets, but have many of the same qualities that would lead you to believe that they are not 6, 7 times less likely to have a great week this week than some of the guys that are getting all the hype.
Mm-hmm. Haymaker Coffee Company was established in 2021 to create the best coffee to fuel the underdogs who perseveres, who hustles, and have the give-it-all mentality to achieve their American dream. Haymaker Coffee only roasts top quality, specialty grade coffee beans, resulting in brews that satisfies those who demand every drop from their coffee and day. If you work hard, run hard, fight hard, and play hard, we have your coffee right here.
Well, I mean, here comes another name. Will Gordon is a name now coming back for the second time on tour from the Korn Ferry Tour, who seems to be playing better golf, coming back out for his second time. He's at 100 and he's at 100 to 1 right now. Jeez, we're starting to, I mean, look, Norlander's played well here, 130. You want a bomb that's played well here. Pretty sure Norlander's got a couple top 10s, if I'm not mistaken.
Norland, I mean, that guy runs so hot. When he has it, it's like unconscious. Although, sort of in a Svensson-like way, you can't turn around when it's a 3-footer for par. You still gotta watch and make sure to track that ball went in the hole, or it can root well.
How is Joel Namath 200 to 1?
That seems large.
How is that possible?
Yeah, I'll be honest, Travis. And I'm not even saying this might be the right strategy or the winning strategy, but when I get into these sorts of events, I find myself so much more likely, like 97 out of 100 times, I am so much more likely to bet the ceiling of an unknown, of, say, a Will Gordon, of a Robbie Sheldon, of a Nick Hardy, of than I am like a Kevin Streelman for the exact same price. Like, I know what that guy can do, but there's an unknown to me of like Hayden Buckley still,
right?
Of Davis Thompson,
right?
That I'm willing to invest in far more than, say, I don't know why I'm picking on Streelman because he's the veteran that is a Chez Reavie, even, but Ryan Armour's had success here, so I don't want to pick on those players and then someone can make fun of me on Sunday. But yeah, I'm just so much more likely to invest in the unknown of a young player with promise and a ceiling than the known of a Streelman, of a Reavie, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And I think to your point, Smalley fits that mold, especially from tee to green, right? I mean, I think that's a guy that when you're starting to stretch into some names here, like Smalley, to me is always like, it's the same theory of Luke List, like tee to green. I need that. I need that in a big way here. And Smalley's impressive, right? Now, can he make some putts? That's what it comes down to, right? Like John Huh's interesting to me from that standpoint. I think John finished, he had a second there at the end, didn't play well at Fortinet, but tee to green in this field, he's impressive. As you start looking for some names, as you're listening to the end of the podcast, that you want to kind of hold on to. as you start looking into some of these bigger odds. I would even throw like a Ben Griffin in there, a tee to green. I think he's a pretty good putter as well. What's Griffin's odds right now? Do you know? Do you have it right there, Ben Griffin?
I'm not gonna lie.
My odds just went to haywire here.
I would have probably looked right through that name.
I think
Taylor. Hold on.
And
I'm real deep now.
Jeez,
Ben Griffin. Yeah, I'm seeing as low as 250 and as high as 350.
Yeah.
Travis. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he struggled. Ben struggled at the end a little bit in web.com. Had a number of missed cuts. Goes fourth at the Wyndham. Missed the cut at the Fortinet. If I'm stretching to a top 20 with a tee to green kind of player, like, into these bigger odds, I don't think I'll play him to win, but that's a guy top 40 that maybe I could see making the cut here from a tee to green standpoint. So, I mean, it gets scrappy.
Yeah. And, sort of just going back
down here.
Yeah. And to go back down the card, I think you could make a really nice little betting card of great tee to green players in that 40 to 60 to 1 range. Like, just bet on the straight ball strikers, even if that includes maybe landing on a Keegan Bradley. That's not, for me. But your Keegans, your Brendan Steeles, they feel very live here based on field strength and based on their ability to just attack these pins. And as I mentioned a handful of times already, that you can, in a field with that lacks the field strength that this does, you can sort of, I don't want to say blindly hope that the past winners and their lack of putting, like, it can make you more believable to like hit that, double click your Brendan Steeles, double click your Keegan Bradleys, those types of players, or Griot that we mentioned. That is, I'm not betting any of those players. I've discussed the ones I am betting.
Yep.
Detry brings that tee to green game for me. But I would just try to fill a betting card of just tee to green disciples and hope you catch that Munoz Cam Champ putting week here.
Yep. That's really my approach is you probably have gathered that I'm taking this week. And, I think probably the guy that I'm impressed with, that I'll probably be my longest shot will be Nick Hardy at 100. I think Hardy played well here last year. Kind of working through a little bit of a slump here. Maybe some of this time off has helped him get back to hitting the ball like we've been used to from him in the summer. We had a really nice run and was kind of flashing up there on the first 2 pages. So I kind of come back to Hardy on that, a little bit of a homer there. So, all right, there's some names. It's tough, like you said, especially with the stat that there's just no winners past 60 to 1. I mean, it's kind of, it feels pointless, when you start getting down in there, but you start kind of, looking at what your model might be and what's important to you this week. For me, tee to green, and all right, let's roll the dice on some putting. Those are some guys that kind of fit that profile that just might pop this week. Let me ask you this before we get off. Are you, I make the statement that the PGA Tour gets too watered down. You agree with that? With these fields? I mean, what we saw in July, that it just gets like, look, I like talking golf. It gives us something to talk about. I get it. But in the grand scheme, taking a step back is a little too watered down. And we need to kind of look, the PGA Tour should be these 20 elevated events. What do you think?
Yeah. So I go back and forth. I mean, content is king and it's still content. And it's like, if I'm the PGA Tour, Travis, which one of these I'm going to tell 3M, I don't want to be in bed with you anymore. I'm going to tell John Deere, I don't want to be in bed with you anymore. I mean, look at these companies, the preeminent companies, corporations in America and around the world want to do business with the PGA Tour. And now that they have these relationships, also contractually, like, which ones do they want to, get rid of? unless someone can tell me, like, does John Deere call the PGA Tour and say, like, stop giving us these bad fields, we want out? Like, I'm assuming that's not happening. Maybe I'm naive to think that the sponsors are happy, but the PGA Tour is in a real tough spot.
Yep.
It is certainly watered down. I don't deny that one bit. But the other part of it is, Travis, that the PGA Tour and golf in general has probably the most loyal television audience in the world. And by that, I mean, well, people like the 55 and older person is probably the most loyal consumer on earth. Their schedule is set. They're hard and fast in their ways. Their routines are their routines.
They're recording the tournament.
And I don't even know if they're recording it per se.
Oh, they are.
But I think year to year, you see like the numbers are the same people that are going to watch John Deere last year, going to watch it next year. Like the same people that make fun of John Deere last year, going to make fun of it again next year. Like, I don't know. Golf is a worldwide game and there's more players than the guys who are the top 60. And I get totally that, like, the top stars aren't paid enough in any sport, truly. Like the superstars in your NFL, in your NBA, in the NHL, all don't make enough. And the middle tier guys make too much.
Yeah.
Like that, I am 100%. Like the fact that a Sidney Crosby makes like 13 million, 12 million, but the middle guys are making like 6, 7, like that's crazy to me.
Yeah. Yep.
And I hockey probably doesn't ring to many, and I'm not even the biggest hockey fan, but the middle tier gets way too much of the pot. No one is coming to watch the middle tier. The middle tier are the luckiest people in all of these sports.
Yep.
In all of these sports. And Phil Mickelson was right. He wasn't compensated or didn't get enough for his likeness. But Phil Mickelson's the total outlier. Like, you trying to say Phil's right and I'm Taylor Gooch. Like, no one else is Phil Mickelson other than Tiger and like 3 other people. So just because Phil thinks he got ripped off, like, your shit is still worthless, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I answered your question, but
no, I think you did. I think there's
thing. And if CBS wants to put on a tournament and some company like 3M wants to sponsor it, how can the PGA Tour walk away from that?
Right. Well, but the question is that the consumer that you're speaking to has to be replaced, right? If you're going to continue to grow. And how do you do that? And what does the next consumer want to, like, my age and younger? What do they want to consume in the way of professional golf, right? And I think that's going to be the question of the tour. The tour probably knows that answer better than we do. But I do think, and if you listen to me and you know my stance on the PGA Tour and Live, but I do think one of the strengths that LIV has is when you turn on an LIV event, you know who's playing. And I think that has value. And they can lead with their stars, and they can do all of that. And the people underneath that will benefit from that as well. Now, with that said, look, don't make no mistake. I like the stories of the Will Gordons, the Alex Smalleys. Look, I'm with you. Corn Ferry Tour. I'm a nut. I'm there. And there's a way to tell that story. There's a way to have that tour. There's a way to do those things. And I think there'd be sponsors signing up for those. But the PGA Tour needs to be these guys. And when you turn it on, I want those guys. I want those guys competing against each other. The best places in the world, all the history, legacy, and off you go with obviously, and it's not 60 guys. It can be 125 guys.
The other caveat to that is, there is a cut. So I'm not to turn this into a live thing, but when you get to Sunday on the PGA Tour, it doesn't matter if Jon Rahm and Rory showed up that week. They might not be contending.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm guaranteed to sit down and see them. Now, don't get me wrong. It's nice to see them on TV. And that's why, fantasy guy freaks out. Why am I watching Jon Rahm in 50th place when the guy in 3rd place who's in my lineup isn't on TV? No one cares, man.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't, Travis, to me, the most polarizing moment of the entire year was it within like a 10-day period. Henrik Stenson gives the middle finger to the Ryder Cup, which is his total right to do, and goes to live, takes the money, wins a live event, which is great for him and his family. And the only people that I think gave a shit are the people that are going to inherit Henrik Stenson's money. But a week later, Tom Kim, 19 years old, creates this magical moment. And you just can't buy the magic. Like Henrik Stenson winning on live days after giving the Ryder Cup the middle finger should have been a way bigger story.
Yeah.
But it was just a fart in the wind.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because no one cared other than the people who are going to inherit Henrik Stenson's money.
Right.
But the week later, to us golf fans, like that and to what's happened since then with even the President's Cup, now Tom Kim feels even bigger. But there's just a magic in some of these unknowns that I think the golf fan appreciates to a certain extent. But you are not wrong. You cannot. There's a value to knowing that I can sit down and see these players. And a lot of people don't even sit down to watch golf until the weekend anyway. So I don't know how the PGA Tour can overcome that while keeping what's important, to golf, which is the ability to create these sorts of, new stars and things out of nowhere. But also
Tony
I would argue
Tony Finau in some way, same track.
But I would also say, Travis, like the 55 and older viewer is way more valuable than Greg Norman thinking he can attract the guys that found golf in different ways, like Top Golf. Like I get millions of people are finding golf in new ways, which is amazing and incredible. Mm-hmm. But just because I go to Top Golf on a couple's date with my wife and my friend and his wife doesn't mean I'm going to care about watching golf. That would be like the people who run bowling think just because me and my wife go on a couple's date to the lanes, we're going to want to watch bowling on TV. It doesn't work like that.
Mm-mm. Yeah. It's interesting. It really is. Boy, what is this going to look like in another year's time? I'm excited about the elevated events. And look, I'm excited about the Korn Ferry Tour. I follow that. These next players coming up, there's going to be some split. There's no question. It's coming. It's just, what is that going to look like? How's it going to be branded? And how they're going to tell that story over a period of time and keep the interest and, let's say, satisfaction of their sponsors. So my goodness, Jay Monahan, best of luck to you and your team. Sanderson Farms, some good picks there. The 60 above's coming. It's coming. There's a bomber. There's a bomber coming in the next, I'm going to say 2 to 3 weeks.
We got Sanderson, then we're in Vegas, and then they're off to Japan. So
there's a bomber coming.
We will see. It's got to come. And this week does feel like it's ripe. It's ripe for it. I'm sure I'll miss it, but hey, the great thing about golf and bets and football season is that on Sunday, Travis, my L's in golf they fall into the bigger ledger of the football money I lost. It's all just one big, it's just one big thing. It doesn't feel different. So it all just gets piled together.
Geoff Fienberg at GFienberg17 on Twitter. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
All the best anytime, Travis.